sixth graders, we are going to continue learning about percents and fractions. But first, before we continue doing that, we need to have a lesson around decimals. And so we're going to see today how are decimals like fractions. So first of all, what is a decimal? Well, a decimal is, decimals, let's say, are parts of numbers. They use a dot and the place value chart. Okay, so we're on a base 10. So when we're looking at decimals, we're looking at parts of numbers and with a dot and tens. So we're talking tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10,000ths. So we're on the place value of 10. Maybe we should make this like of the tens. Okay, so for example, this right here, 0.2, this is like saying 2 tenths. Okay, 2 tenths. It moves one place over on a base 10. If I had an example that was like this would be written as 22 hundredths. Okay, notice the TH after it, so it's hundredths. These are parts of numbers. They're not quite a whole. Okay, so like fractions, fractions aren't wholes either, and so decimals are not whole numbers. They're parts of numbers, pieces of numbers that get added together until you get to the wholes. Okay, so how are the two connected? So if I have a fraction, can I make a decimal? You bet. Let's see how to do that. So if I wanted to change my fraction, so let's talk about this. Changing fractions to decimals. I could do it by using either place value or division. So I can do this in two different ways. So my first way is by looking at a number that looks like this. Let's go to this example, 2 tenths. 2 over 10 is equal to 0.2 because this right here, that is the tenths column. So when I write it, I just write 0.2, 2 tenths. Okay, so that's how we write that. It also means 2 divided by 10. So if I had 2 divided by 10, well, I know that 10 doesn't go into 2. However, if I put a dot here and I say 20, how many times can 2 go into 20? I've now been able to say 10 times 2 gives me 20. So I have 2 tenths by using division. Let's go ahead and do another example. So let's do example B. Let's say that I have 4 fifths. Well, I could find a decimal by using equivalent fractions if I wanted to. So if I wanted to, I know that the tenths place is a decimal point spot. So I could say 4 over 5 is equal to what over 10? And then I could use 5 to 10, I multiply by 2. So if I do that to the bottom, I then have to do it to the top. Well, 4 times 2 is 8. So I read this fraction right here as 8/10, or 0.8, 8/10. Okay, well, could I also use regular division to solve this? Yeah, I sure can. I could say 4 divided by 5 because we know in a fraction that you're dividing it, right? So 4 divided by 5. Well, 4 is smaller than 5, so I can't divide by that. So instead, I'm going to just put a decimal because I know that I need to add a 0. So as soon as I put this dot here, I'm now adding in a spot. Well, 5 can go into 40 8 times, or 0.8. And we subtract and we have 8/10. Okay, well, what happens when you have a bigger number? Let's say that I have a number like 47 hundredths. Okay, so let's say that example C, I have 47 hundredths. Well, how in the world would I make that into a decimal? Well, it's already in a hundredths place, so I could just say it equals 0.47 or 47 hundredths because this right here is the hundredths place. I could also use division again. So I could also use division and say 47 divided by 100. Well, I know that 47 is smaller than 100, so I need a decimal right away. And I'm going to add a 0. Well, 100 can go into 470 4 times. 400 spots. Okay, so then I would just subtract. Well, it cannot go in to 70, but it can go into 700 7 times. And that gives us 700, which gives us 47 hundredths. So you can use this division, this line right here, as a divided by line, right? Or you can get it to a point where, let's do another example. Let's use purple again since I'm trying to do too many colors here. Okay, so let's say, again, that I have something like this. I can get it to hundredths, to the hundredths place. So let's say that I have 40 over 20. Okay, well, I can read this as 40 over 20. Well, I know 40 is bigger than 20, so this is going to have a whole number in it because 40 is bigger. But still, let's go ahead and get it to 100ths. Well, 20 to 100 is a change of 5. So I need to multiply by 5. So I'm going to multiply by 5 on the top. Well, 40 times 5 gives me, that's a 0 and that is 20, so that gives me 200. Well, that's the same as 200 over 100. So 200 hundredths, or 2 wholes. Because if I were to look at this, I have 100 over 100 is a whole and 100 over 100 is a whole. So this is equal to 2 wholes. Okay, 6th graders, it is your turn to do a try it. I'm sorry that I wrote so big on this paper. So I'm going to turn the page so that you can see your try its. let's do a couple different try-its. So try-it number 1. All of these you are needing to convert from a fraction to a decimal. Okay, so you're going to go from a fraction to a decimal. So number 1 is 92 hundredths. Number 2 is 3/25. And number 3 is going to be 32/50. Okay, 6th graders, go ahead and convert these fractions for me to decimals. Go ahead and hit pause those so you don't hear me solving for you. All right, on number 1, well, this is already out of hundredths. So because it's already out of hundredths, I can just go ahead and put 0.92 or 92 hundredths because this is the hundredths place, 10 hundredths. All right, this one, 3 divided by 25, or I need to get it to the hundredths place because it's over 10. So I'm going to go from the hundredths place here. So 25 times 4 gives me 100. And 3 times 4 gives me 12. So when I write this as a decimal, 12 hundredths, I'm just rewriting it as 12 hundredths. Okay, and last but not least, I can get this one to be 100 by multiplying by 2 over 2. So 50 times 2 gives me 100. 32 times 2. 32 times 2 is 4 and 6. So 64. Or I could have just doubled that. 64 hundredths is 64 hundredths as a decimal. All right, 6th graders, how did you do on these? Now, please go back and answer your essential question. How are decimals like fractions? So go ahead and answer your essential question. How are decimals like fractions? And then put your rating out in the box. How are you feeling about your learning? 1, I don't know my place value or I don't know how to divide, so this is really challenging for me. So I'm going to have to practice a lot. 2, I'm doing okay. I see I just have to have a denominator in the tenths or in the hundredths. And 3, I am awesome. I totally understand this and I'm ready for my practice work. All right, 6th graders, thank you so much for all of your hard work and I appreciate everything that you do. Make it a great day the Cougar way.